Well, at last weekend's Trump rally in New York City's Madison Square Garden, a comedian made several rough jokes about Latinos, including this one.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
After the rally, the Trump campaign distanced itself from the controversial remarks, saying this joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. And Florida's junior Republican Senator Rick Scott said this joke bombed for a reason. It's not funny and it's not true. Puerto Ricans are amazing people and amazing Americans. I've been to the island many times. It's a beautiful place. Everyone should visit. I will always do whatever I can to help any Puerto Rican in Florida or on the island. More than 1 million Puerto Ricans live in Florida. Across the state in communities from Orlando to Miami to Tampa, there was strong reaction from the Puerto Rican community.
I feel insulted.
We can't just put this off on this comedian.
I am Puerto Rican and proud. When we have brothers and sisters, grandparents, fathers who served in World War I, World War II, in Vietnam, they too are Americans.
It's offensive not only to Puerto Ricans but to every Latino.
I don't think this was unexpected. No smart campaign manager would have allowed this happen without knowing in advance what they were going to say.
I've been in the United States for 31 years and never have I experienced such a degree of disrespect. Those comments can really hinder the economic development of the island. Those individuals who have never visited Puerto Rico, they might have the wrong impression about our island.
Former Governor Jeb Bush, who has been largely quiet during this campaign, was somewhat critical of the comedian's remarks.
This guy's a comedian, not a very funny one, and I think what he said was insulting. But on the other hand, I don't think everything that's said by people supporting a candidate should be directly attributed to the candidate themselves.
The controversy turned on Tuesday when, in a call to Latino voters, President Biden said this.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable.
The president later said he was only referring to Trump's comedian supporter and not to all Trump supporters. Vice President Harris distanced herself from Biden's gaffe.
I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for.
Democrats charge there is a double standard when it comes to Trump, that he uses words like enemies, vermin, garbage, and scum to refer to Harris supporters and is rarely held accountable.
And it's not her, it's the people that surround her. They're scum, and they want to take down our country. They are absolute garbage. So, Natalie, does this affect the Puerto Rican vote here in Florida? And does President Trump often get a pass when he says controversial things? Two questions.
Well, I do think that at some level it's going to affect a few people. We heard that from some of the folks that were interviewed. But let me say that Hinckliffe, to me, was an unknown. I didn't know who this person was. And he's now getting his 15 minutes of fame, which is really a shame because this is an error on Trump's team and putting him on stage. He's an insult comedian. This is what he does. And so that mistake of having him as a part of what otherwise was a really positive message coming out of that rally, and it is unfortunate because we are ascribing jokes that were made by this comedian to this candidate. And we have a lot of other comments that have been made that are being ascribed. We have not only what the sitting president did and said about garbage and the folks that support Trump, which I don't think should be ascribed to Vice President Kamala Harris either, right? That is not her words. We heard differently from her. But the fact of the matter is, I'm hoping that something positive comes from this. The fact of the matter is that Puerto Rico does have a trash problem. They do have a waste issue. So let's go ahead and take advantage of the fact that this is being discussed now, and let's have either this current administration or the future administration work with our partners in Puerto Rico and help the people of Puerto Rico make sure that the 1.3 billion pounds of trash that are being produced every year, that right now they're 85% of their landfills are overwhelmed with, are being addressed.
Patrick, let me bring you on to this. Does this affect the Puerto Rican vote? And also, does President Trump get a pass when he says controversial things?
First of all, Trump looks good in orange. He should wear it more often. Second, this wasn't about trash in Puerto Rico. He wasn't talking about the trash problem in Puerto Rico. He was talking about Puerto Ricans being trash. And this campaign This is the circus that Trump has around him, and he does have to take responsibility for people that his campaign puts on stage. This was the kindest thing he said was about Puerto Rico. His next comments most people won't even say on TV because it was horrible, and it was about all Hispanics. It didn't matter if you were legal, illegal, if you were born here, if you're third generation. It was a horrible comment, and I encourage people to look it up.
Okay. Steve, how important is the Puerto Rican vote here in the state of Florida?
It matters. It matters in places like Orange and Osceola County. Those are two Democratic counties, obviously, and it matters a lot in Miami-Dade. I've enjoyed these comments and listening to the analysis here. You know, the prototype for the insult comedian in American history is, we all know, it was Don Rickles. Don Rickles was funny. Don Rickles was clever. Don Rickles didn't come across as dehumanizing people and insulting people the way you heard from this guy the other night. I think the accumulation of these words is going to have an impact on this election. As we're doing this television show here today, Rob, the country is abuzz over this comment that Trump made about putting Representative Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. Unconscionable stuff.
Barry, does President Trump get a pass when he says controversial things and refers to Democrats as vermin and scum?
I don't think he gets a pass at all, because every time he makes any comment, I see it on MSNBC, CNN, and all the major networks.
Do you see it on Fox?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of people on Fox that have been critical of the president. But they're having to make a choice. But I think that this all is a distraction. Why are we talking about a non-funny comedian and President Biden who made a gaffe? Why are we not talking about the fact that there were murders in Chicago this week and nobody's writing about that? Why are we not talking about border issues? Why are we not talking about economic issues? This is all a distraction away from the campaign. And I think this is, for the liberal media likes it, because it distracts you from Harris's campaign's lack of a message.
And there was a mass shooting in Orlando on Halloween night.
And nobody's talked about that.
Al, what do you make of this controversy?
Well, this did not happen in a vacuum. I mean, we all remember President Trump's response after the devastating hurricane in Puerto Rico. He went there and he threw paper towels at people. He talked about wanting to trade Puerto Rico for Greenland. He made a lot of other negative comments about Puerto Rico around that time and had to be convinced to send the nation's disaster relief to Puerto Rico. The question I have for people who are Puerto Rican or Latino is, why would you even consider voting for this former president? And no, I'm sorry, there were not a lot of positive messages coming out of Madison Square Garden last week, and the former president saying it was a love fest was probably the funniest joke that I've heard this week.